Hi there, Year 12. This is a short screencast looking at Unit 2 Section A and writing those interpretation notes to go alongside your duologues or monologues. And specifically, this is looking at how to use fear to write your interpretation notes. To remind you, fear is simply a writing frame. It's similar to P, point, evidence and explain. However, in drama, P can quite often create not very specific and quite waffly paragraphs, whereas fear gets you much closer to the point. So F stands for focus, which is similar to your point. This is a one sentence which explains what your paragraph's going to be about. And then the E stands for evidence and explain, where you are then quoting from the text or the performance and explaining why that evidence meets your focus. Then you've got acting or action, which is then where you describe what it is that you are going to be doing. And then the response, which is, in your case, desired, because you're writing about performance that you're going to do. But it's audience, so it's the response that you want to get from your audience when you're doing it. So, if we start with the focus, this is a concise sentence, no more than 20 words, say, and it's the shortest part of your paragraph, and it's got to go straight to the point and say what it is that you're looking at. So, my example here is the ultimate cultural influence on my performance of Helmer is the treatment of women in the 19th century. Gets straight to the point. It talks about the role that you're going to play and a specific cultural influence on your performance. So from the focus, we go on to evidence and example, and this is going to be about double the length of your first sentence. It might be more than one sentence. You need to find a moment in your performance that evidences your focus and explain why it does. Obviously, you need to be as specific as possible. I always go for things like just one line or a character's entrance. The more specific you can be in your example, the easier it is for you to describe it in key words as concisely and appropriately as possible. So my example is this: women at this time married young and were considered the property of their husbands. I think the line, "Oh, don't be so melodramatic," which Helmer says to Nora after she reveals her desire to leave him and set herself free, exemplifies this. This is about as much depth as you need to go into, because really the most important part of your paragraphs is explaining what you are doing to communicate, not necessarily the context with which the line comes from. So if you think about the evidence as provided in context, it gives the reader the point from which you are performing from. So the fear paragraph goes so far like this. The ultimate cultural influence on my performance of Helmer is the treatment of women in the 19th century. Women at this time married young and were considered the property of their husbands. I think the line, "Oh, don't be so melodramatic," which Helmer says to Nora after she reveals her desire to leave him and set herself free, exemplifies this. So we've got the fear, the focus of the paragraph there, and then in purple you've got the E, the evidence and explain. So F for focus, E for evidence and explain. Going on to the action and acting, this is the most important part of your paragraph. This is where you will get all the marks, the most of the marks for. This is the most important bit. And this is going to be the longest section, and you'll cover everything that you possibly can in terms of those key words that refer to voice and movement. It's all about those key words. So, and you've got to go in as much depth as possible. Mention every key word that you can. This is why it's better to have a really specific example rather than a wish-washy, wavy example, so that you can really, really hone in and get to the point. So my example here, the character uses overt prestige language to put down Nora. So I say this with an arrogant tone of voice, emphasizing the don't. I will say it at a slow pace and with a lack of energy. I will also articulate the word melodramatic for additional patronizing tone. When I say this line, I shake my head. before making eye contact with Nora. My posture drops and my shoulders fall. I will also wave my hands in a dismissive gesture. Just want to really highlight. So you've got the keyword overt prestige, you've got the keyword of tone of voice, emphasis, pace, energy, articulation, tone again. You've got references to movement of the head, eye contact, posture, and finally gestures. So you've got a really concise couple of sentences full of key words that then gives the examiner a really good understanding of what it is that you are doing in order to portray the evidence that you were saying. In this case, the fact that Helma is shocked at what Nora is saying. So the paragraph goes something like this. The ultimate cultural influence of my performance as Helma is the treatment of women in the 19th century. That's the focus. The evidence and explanation. Women at this time married young and were considered the property of their husbands. I think don't be so melodramatic, which Helma says to Nora after she reveals her desire to leave him and set herself free, exemplifies this. And then finally in red, the character uses overt loud prestige language to put down Nora. So I say there's an arrogant tone of voice, emphasizing the don't. I will say it with a slow pace and lack of energy. I will also articulate the word melodramatic for additional patronizing tone. When I say this, I will lie and shake my head before the eye contact with Nora. My posture drops and my shoulders fall. I will also wave my hands in a dismissive gesture. So that breaks down into our paragraph so far. And then we've got to go to the response. So, like the opening part of the paragraph, this is also very short and ties up the paragraph, a bit like the L in a Peel paragraph, telling us, the audience, what you intend the performance to do. So, for an example, in doing this, I hope to communicate my control and domination over Nora, as well as my disgust of the idea of her freedom. Now, this is quite a simple sentence, but it refers us back to the first paragraph in a much more specific way. If you look at the whole paragraph, that's how we started. We started with a generalised comment about the treatment of women in the 19th century, and we end with a much more specific comment about how my character Helma acts and treats his wife. So we've gone full circle, but we've gone full circle in a much more specific and concise way. Okay, so that is our fear paragraph. I'll just highlight the middle section of that so that you can see that. So you've got in blue is the F, in purple you've got the evidence and explain, in the white you've got the action and acting, and in the green you've got the R, the response. Okay, so I hope that helps you with your work. Thank you.